On today's show, The Athletic holds a player survey across the NBA, and players have feelings about the Luka Doncic trade. A lot of them negative. How will that affect the Mavericks? And some of them positive. Could they be right? We'll talk about that and more today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm gonna get a city like that. Dogs, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Gotta be bold, dog.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code Locked On NBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Joining me today, the cutest co-host I've ever had. Yeah, the puppy cam's back on video if you're watching. We'll get into the player survey that The Athletic took. They asked a bunch of questions, and Anthony Davis got a vote for something. Naji Marshall got a vote for something. Jason Kidd got a vote for something. And then they asked a bunch of other questions, so we'll get to a bunch of those. They talked about if the Mavs are the best or the worst franchise. The Mavs got votes for the best franchise in the league and the worst. So we'll talk about that discrepancy or dichotomy right there. But let's start here because the Luka Doncic trade is all anybody can talk about. If you're a person that is sitting there and you're listening to this show and you go, can't these guys just move on? Like, I know it was
tumultuous.
It was just a tough end of the season for you, but you got to be able to talk about something else. All right, I'd love to move on to the draft, and we will. And there's a lot of time to do that or talk about free agency or anything like that. But the Luka trade is all anybody is talking about across the league. I went to the play-in game, Sacramento and Memphis. You're walking around talking to people, and all they're talking about is the Luka Doncic trade. And we've heard from so many people, so many media members. We've heard from executives. We've heard from all kinds of people. And now The Athletic did a poll. They did a player poll. Over 150 players participated in this poll. And so they asked them a bunch of questions: best organization, worst organization, MVP, overrated player. And then they had a special whole section for the Luka Doncic trade and how they responded to the Luka Doncic trade. And I'm going to read a bunch of their responses, and you're going to decide how you feel about this, if you feel better or you feel worse about it. According to The Athletic, 16 players used the word shocked. 18 players used the word crazy when it came to the Luka trade. And one player in particular said this, and these are all anonymous. We don't know who they are. Some of them we're going to try to make guesses. But one player said, shocked. I was on the court. A fan told me at half court. It's one of those moments you won't forget. Like when Michael Jackson died or 9/11 happened. Those moments you just know is going to be forever ingrained. Also, I don't know if that player was on the court because it was like 11 p.m. Maybe it was a West Coast game. Maybe those are still going on. But man, compared it to Michael Jackson dying or 9/11, like that's the level of this event that has happened in the NBA, that players are comparing it to that. You had Slightly on the show during our live show talk about how, it's like if Hiroshima happened and you don't talk about what happened there. It was just a huge monumental thing. And players have a lot of feelings about it. One of them in particular, a player said, when I'm not with my team, I'm a Mavericks fan. I don't know how to process it because it happened so fast. I was taken aback. It lets you know that nobody is untouchable in this league. Now, we can make a lot of guesses on who the Mavericks fan is out there. Is it Miles Turner? Is it Cade Cunningham, Tyrese Maxey, Julius Randle? They're all from the DFW area. But it did give me a little bit of a laugh. Maybe it was a chuckle. Sorry, there's a difference between those two. That there are NBA players that are still fans of teams that they were fans of growing up, and that they play for a team, and that's like their job. And then they have a team that they root for. But man, you just go through all these, and another player said it was the craziest trade I've ever seen. One player said, I thought it was just NBA doing it for viewership, so they're believing the same kind of conspiracies that we're believing. One of them said, I DM'd Shams and texted him and was like, hey, did you get hacked? And another player said, it's like a once in a blue moon type of thing. I don't think something that is ever going to happen like that again, but it's definitely got the franchise players and star players on edge. And that's the point I want to go to right now. It's fun to hear all the players' responses to it, and they basically responded all the same way we did, right? But the one that said it definitely got franchise players and star players on edge across the league. Nico Harrison in his press conference the other day said he's not worried about free agents. He's not worried about this. He's not worried about this whole thing affecting the Mavericks' ability to get free agents, to bring players in. And I kind of agree with him for this upcoming offseason. I don't think the caliber of players the Mavericks will be going after, except for Kyrie Irving, and that one is,
dude, it's great.
Should be great, hopefully. But that caliber of player, the Mavericks are not going after the star level player. They're not trying to convince a LeBron James, an Anthony Edwards, a Giannis, whoever to come to the Mavericks. If that was the case, and the Mavs were having to put their reputation on the line to try and get one of those players to join the Mavericks now after making that move, I would be really concerned. But just going into this offseason, I'm not too concerned. But then you start going through some of these responses from players. I categorize them. I'm just gonna read a bunch of them because I think it's so fascinating. We'll discuss some of them as we go. There's a bunch of them that are positive. I'm saving those for later. So I categorize them like this. These are all the negative responses that from players. Probably the worst decision in modern basketball history. Psychotic, blasphemy, dumbest idea ever, worst ever, not smart. One of the worst basketball decisions I've ever seen. I don't like it. I thought it was a bad trade. I think it's the craziest trade in basketball history. I didn't think that was a very smart decision. Very shocking. I thought it was dumb. I wouldn't have done it. That's like 10, 15 different players. I read off a bunch of different responses from players that all just say it's dumb idea, psychotic, like insane. And now these players will remember that. That will be Nico Harrison's legacy. Unless he gets proven right. And we've talked about how Nico Harrison gets proven right. He gets proven right if Luka Doncic breaks down, if Anthony Davis can stay healthy and the Mavericks have more success than the Lakers do. And then Luka Doncic turns into Joel Embiid or Andrew Luck. And Andrew Luck's an NFL player that ended his career at like age 28, 29. He ended it early because he kept getting injured and he didn't want to keep dealing with it. He wanted to be able to walk when he was, when he was older. And he lost the love of the game. Now, I don't think Luka's ever going to lose the love of the game. That's something that he will always have, because watching him play, being around him, seeing how he, just has fun and like wants to just always throw trick shots and like he just loves the game so much. I don't think he'll ever become that. But that's what would have to happen in order for Nico to be right. And these players to try maybe change their tune about how they're talking about the Mavericks. I thought it was crazy. Thought it was dumb. Bad for Mavs business. Bad work. Stupid. If Luka can get traded, everybody can get traded. Didn't make sense. Nobody's safe. Ridiculous and eye-opening. Scary to the business side of the NBA. It's not just about even trading the player of Luka himself. It's about the business side. What does it mean? Nobody's safe. You go to the Mavericks, you sign a contract. You have no idea if you're going to live out the rest of that contract there. And I think that's the point that eventually is going to bite the Mavericks in the butt. It's going to bite them, and somebody's going to turn down the Mavericks. And we may never know if it's going to bite them or not. But I think the reputation that Nico Harrison has gotten now, and hearing it from players, it's not just from us. It's not just from media people. It's not just from you, the fan. It's not just, the emotional people, right? The non-process oriented people. And players are emotional too, obviously. Watch Draymond Green anytime he is on a court. But it's from players that actually have to make these decisions. And make these decisions to eventually come to the Mavericks. And I think it's going to hurt the Mavericks eventually. These responses were overwhelming to me about how the words they use: blasphemy, dumbest, worst, psychotic. Like, describing the Mavericks, unless something changes, right? This is what NBA players are going to think about the Mavericks. A lot of players talked about the return too, and how about the return that the Mavericks got was terrible. One player said, "I was in disbelief because if you're trading a guy like Luka, you get the entire kitchen sink back. I mean, obviously they get Anthony Davis. Let's not act like he's not a top 75 player, perennial all-star, all-NBA guy himself. But you would imagine there'd be several first-round picks attached to that, and there wasn't. So something is going on there. I don't know if are we full NBA players going full conspiracy here with us. Another player, terrible decision, terrible. I think Dallas went from a 5-year window to a 10-year window. Exactly what we've said on this show. Players are thinking the exact same thing and looking at the Mavericks thinking about these things. Another player, I would have tried to get a lot more. A younger player than AD that can be a foundational piece for them. We know that the Mavericks tried to go after Anthony Edwards. I think that they kind of approached the Giannis idea. Giannis not younger, but at least younger than Anthony Davis. Another one, thought it was stupid. Anthony Davis is a top player, but you got a franchise player who wants to be there. Ride it out with him. That's it. Ride it out with him. He wanted to be there. You have a franchise player. It's what I said the other day. Sometimes NBA teams and NBA GMs especially don't get to choose who their star player is. It depends on when you get the top pick in the lottery. The Pelicans happen to get one for Zion Williamson. And now they're dealing with what happens when Zion Williamson is the star player that lands in your lap. The Sixers, same thing. They did the process, and Joel Embiid was the one that ended up being the one that got there. They tried more times than anybody, and they still ended up with a guy that ended up injured, and they didn't get to choose exactly who their star player was. And he was like the third pick. He wasn't even the number one pick. And then you get the Dallas Wings who get Paige Beckers, and you're like, all right, that landed in our lap. Absolutely great. But the Dallas Wings in 2021 got Charlie Collier as the number one pick. You don't get to choose who your star player is necessarily. And Nico Harrison tried to make that decision for the Mavericks retroactively and did it in a bad way. And did it in a way that got a player back that is not as good as Luka, a package that does not negate what you're losing with Luka Doncic himself. And the players see that. They talked about the return in this, and I thought that was fascinating. Coming up, a bunch of players sounded off about giving up on Luka himself. We've talked about this, but then a lot of players had some positive things to say. What did they say about this deal? They kind of liked it. We'll talk about that and more coming up in Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavericks brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Amazon.com/Fire TV /Locked On or /Fire TV Locked On. I'm going to always mess up one of these words, Amazon. I apologize. Did you know that your Amazon Fire Stick can be an Xbox? You can go and use Xbox games on it. All you have to do is grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, EA Sports, College Football, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Avowed, a bunch of games like that. You can stream all those titles. It's gaming made simple and all on your Fire TV. You can take it with you. Great stuff like that. Low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need to stay connected. It also has all the other 4K streaming services, Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, even more like that. So go check out a Fire Stick when you can. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and Fire TV Cube. Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. We have the Locked On Mavs text line. You can get texts from us on all kinds of different things. You can get texts on the offseason. We'll have all kinds of great things on the draft, on the lottery that's coming up, things like that. Text the number 214-643-8637, and it helps support us as well. We send a bunch of stuff there. We answer your questions, all that kind of things on the text line. All right, let's get into the rest of the responses from players, because there's a lot of negative. And I talked about the return. A lot of players were like, the Mavs are going to come out of the West. One player said, terrible. Wow. Like, what did they do? I thought the Mavs were going to come out of the West again 2 months ago. Like we did. That was terrible, man. I don't care how you slice it. To not get back what they should have gotten back is ridiculous. Messed the league up. Another player said they didn't get a less injury-prone player in Davis. I think it's bad because you didn't get someone who's going to be more active than what you had. Yeah. And we saw that play out the end of last season. A lot of players sounded off on giving up Luka specifically. Player said, bad trade. Keep him. Generational player. Another one said, terrible decision. If Luka came in weighing 500 pounds, so what? He's still averaging damn near a 30-point triple-double. That's been my point. It's like, who cares if he's out of shape? He's still giving you a 30-point triple-double every night and breaking defenses. There's only like 3 players in the NBA that can do the things that he does. And that's maybe even being generous, but can like literally break a defense just by existing. It's like him, Jokic, and I don't know, Curry probably just breaks a defense just by existing and running around. Real puzzling. I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I understand what they're talking about as far as the defense goes, but every player has strengths and weaknesses, and Luka's offensive strength outweighs his defensive weakness by a wide margin. Another player that agrees with us. Man, a lot of players don't get it, and they don't understand the return. They don't understand why giving up on Luka, and it's interesting to hear these players sound off on this. Another one said, although I understand why they did it, I think it was a bad idea because a player like Luka doesn't just come around every day. You see, as soon as he goes to the Lakers, they're second in the West. You see how they're playing. Yeah, he changes how you play, the dynamic. This one fascinated me. This is the last negative one, and then we'll move to the positive ones. This is a longer quote, but this one just makes you think about the Mavericks and how players are going to view the Mavericks. Quote, I think that SHIT was idiotic, but I don't think it was a bad trade. I just think that the way they did it and everything about it was idiotic. I think them shopping the franchise face of their organization for a lot of players who already feel that this is a business, like the MFers don't care about you. I think it sets an example like, all right, why should I give an F about this team if this is how they're going to treat me? I came in here, I was all NBA, I was 5 times in 6 seasons, an MVP candidate, and I don't even get told about none of this. I'm like, this organization doesn't give an F about me. Why would I give an F about any organization? There is a differential in that one and some of the other ones that it's not just the Mavericks, that this trade opened up players' eyes to anybody can get traded at any point. It doesn't matter. So maybe it's not specifically ire against the Mavericks, but against all NBA teams. And just the business side in general. There's the two sides of it, right? It feels like there's the labor and the management side of things. And maybe players will just take that and push it towards the NBA and management and GMs as a whole. And I think that part is kind of interesting. But it makes you think. All these negative quotes make you think, what are players going to think about the Dallas Mavericks? I can't imagine it's very good hearing all the words that I just read. There's a good amount of positive ones too. It was probably like, as far as what the Athletic wrote down in their article, it was probably about a fourth of the responses that were said were positive. In some, or positive or trying to understand in some way. One of them said, I think it will eventually work out for both sides if all players are able to stay healthy. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a problem right now for the Mavs. Another one said, I don't think it was bad. I think it was just 2 different outlooks at what gets the job done. If you look in the past, they've had success. So they know better than what we know. And I think if AD gets back to a healthy level, then everything will be good for both sides. I agree with that player that I think that Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, will be good for the Mavericks. I think hopefully getting a healthy offseason and getting to fully get back to who he is coming into the season, understanding how to play with Lively and Gafford and getting to play that 4 position like he's wanted. I think that'll eventually open up some things for him and he'll be motivated going into next year. And I think all that is positive. Another player said, I think time will tell, but I think Dallas made the trade expecting Anthony Davis to be healthy. That's one of the things that hurts Nico's case and the narrative and all this the most. Well, not the most, but that hurts him a lot. Is that this happened. He traded for Anthony Davis and he got hurt the very first game he played. He was hurt coming in, but he wasn't as hurt as he was when he went out after that Houston game, right? Couple other positive responses. Quote, I think it was a good trade on both ends. I feel like LA got 2 steps better with Luka, and I feel like AD is going to be a perfect fit in Dallas. I feel like it wasn't a trade where we just go, oh, they won or they won it. I feel like the swap was great. Won it for both sides, but nobody's saying that the Mavs won this trade, right? I think that's what I take away from that quote. Another one said, I see both sides. A lot of people want to say it was dumb. I see the vision. Did Nico get to this guy? I could see both teams benefiting. I think the Lakers probably benefit a little more as far as longevity, but if Dallas wants to win now, it's not a bad move. Again, positive, but like not even fully saying Dallas is coming off better in this trade. So at the very best in this deal, according to NBA players, it was a win-win for both sides. Another one, I was shocked, but it made sense. Money-wise, they didn't want to pay him all that money. They're all hurt right now, but I actually thought it was a good trade. That's the bet that Nico is making. Nico is making the bet that, hey, if we give Luka this $350 million deal and pay him like $70 million a year, it's not going to work out for us and not going to work out for this team. And so we're going to bet that he's not going to live it out. I mean, I can understand that to a degree. Luka's been dealing with injuries. You see every night. The other night I was watching him against the Timberwolves and with the Lakers, and his knee's bleeding again. Is it injections? Is it an infection? Is it something that he's still dealing with? Like, Brian Suter is dumbfounded. Why his knee is still bleeding? He's a sports medical doctor. We've had him on the show a bunch, and he studies this stuff and looks at all this stuff, and he has no earthly idea why his knee is still bleeding. And I'm sure someone does, and maybe it's more obvious than I'm trying to look at it. But to bet against Luka Doncic, to bet against him for the Supermax is one thing. To bet against him as a player in general is completely something else. Last thing I'll say about this, there are 3 quotes that I just cackled when I read them. 1, I think it's a phenomenal decision. So smart, wise. I'm a Nico Harrison fan. Another one, thank you. I love it. Another one, I wasn't mad at it. I have to imagine that this was like LeBron, Austin Reeves, and Rui Hachimura. Or like Jackson Hayes. And then these players are just like, yeah, no, great. This deal was awesome. Like, this changed my life. Like, this Jackson Hayes is like, this made my life so much easier. LeBron's like, oh my gosh, now I don't have to be the only guy that can hit a shot on this team in tough situations. Now somebody's gonna get more attention than me, and I'm gonna get to. Maybe LeBron didn't like that actually, but I just found that funny. Thank you, I love it. That's such a funny quote. So in all this, I think I look at it and say, there's some players that get it and see the vision. But the ones that do still also acknowledge it was a good move for the Lakers too, or even it's still a better move for the Lakers. Like, you can't find anybody that thinks this is a good move for the Mavericks. Barely anybody. And you see that among players too. And I think that is... Nico used the word awesome to describe 20,000 people chanting fire Nico in terms of like the scale. And so I'm going to say it's awesome. It's awesome, the scale of people that think that this was a bad trade. Coming up, The Athletic also put on a poll with a bunch of other things. The Mavs got votes for best organization and worst organization. What do we take from that? We'll talk about that and more coming up. Today's Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase of a ticket. Last minute deal, save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that kind of stuff. You're going to want to use it. There's all kinds of things, honestly. I just listed all of them, but you can, they have tickets for the Avalanche at the Stars, Game 5, $65 right now. You can go click into that, see the view from your seat anywhere. Tickets for Astros at Rangers right now. Kendrick Lamar and SZA coming on Saturday. That one is pretty fun. This is all on Game Time. You can see everything. WWE SmackDown. Fever at Wings at the College Park Center. This is not the one at the American Airlines Center, but this must be a preseason game. Yeah, it's beginning of August. Yeah, you can go check that one out right now. Tickets are going up for this one. Cheapest ticket you can get right now is $147 in the upper deck. All kinds of stuff with Game Time. I love it. I use it all the time. Taking the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, all in word, for $20 off. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Isaac, let's get into the rest of this player poll survey from The Athletic. A lot of responses, a lot of questions, and these are always really fascinating. But the ones that stood out to me were the ones where the Mavericks were mentioned. They were asked, what's the league's best organization? And this is organization, not best team. They're not asking who's the best team on the court, but organization as far as how they take care of players, the accommodations, how the organization is run, all that. Warriors number 1, 22% of the vote, and 137 players voted in this one. 22%, so not like an overwhelming, but that's a lot. Thunder, 17.5%. Celtics, 15%. Clippers, 9%. Heat, 6%. Lakers, 5%. Spurs, 4%. Cavs, about 4%. Bucks, 3%. Jazz, 2.2%. And the Mavericks, 1.5%. That means 2 votes for the Mavericks among the 137 players. So the Mavericks getting a couple votes. Pacers got 2. Grizzlies got 2. Timberwolves got 2. Magic got 2. Suns got 2. The Hawks, Nets, Nuggets, Rockets, Blazers all got 1. And any of the teams that I didn't mention, your Charlottes, your Wizards, they didn't get any votes. So at least the Mavericks got some votes. So there are some players out there. Maybe if this represents all the players, then 137 times 4 basically, because there's 450 players in the NBA. Then maybe that's like 8 players across the league that think the Mavericks are the best franchise, best organization in the NBA. At least there are players that think that. I think that's what I'll take away from this. At least there are some players that think that. And at least the Mavs still have some sort of reputation across the league as being a solid franchise. That you can see that in the worst organization. Hornets, number 1, 38%. Wizards, 20%. Pelicans, 11%. And only 113 voted on this one, by the way. So 24 decided not to vote on this one. Kings, 8%. Sixers, 5%. Mavericks, 4%. So that's 5 votes. So there are 2 players that think that the Mavericks are the best organization and 5 players that think the Mavericks are the worst organization in the NBA. Maybe that ratio equals itself across the NBA, where now a bunch of players will look at this and say, this has got to be the worst organization. This has got to be the worst organization in the NBA. But that they got votes for both, I think is fascinating. How many got votes for both? Not too many. Not too many. Jazz, I think, got votes for both. The Mavs may have gotten the highest votes for both sides now that I'm looking at this. The most votes as both best and worst, which is, hey, that's where the Mavs are right now. It's not the complete end of the world. I think that's what I take away from the worst. Yes, 5 players did vote on this, but they're not the Hornets. They're not the Wizards. They're not even the Pelicans. Or the Kings. The Kings have a new arena. Kings are, Kings traded De'Aaron Fox too, but you look at this, and if the Mavericks were overwhelming, 50% of players said the Mavericks are the worst organization, then maybe you'd be concerned. So everything I said about the players and how they responded to the Luka trade, at least they're not thinking the Mavs are the worst organization. And so I think I'll take that away from it. Anthony Davis got 1 vote. Most overrated player in the NBA. If Luka Doncic voted on Anthony Davis as most overrated player, I think that would be hilarious. Who's the most hilarious player that could vote Anthony Davis as the most overrated? But Tyrese Halliburton got 14%. Only 90 players voted on this. Gobert got 10%, so that's 9 players voted that. Trae Young got 9%. Jimmy Butler, Bradley Beal, Draymond Green, John Morant, Julius Randle, Joel Embiid, Giannis, Dylan Brooks, Paul George, Tyler Hero, Drew Holiday, Jaren Jackson, LeBron, Kuzma, Sabonis, Zion, all got 2 votes each. And then receiving 1 vote was Anthony Davis, LaMelo, Scotty Barnes, Booker, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards, Josh Giddey, Levine, Donovan Mitchell, Mobley, Chris Paul, Tatum, Franz Wagner. It's I feel like I'm just reading off the entire NBA. This was so spread out. So Anthony Davis got a vote for this. And also Jock Landale got a vote for this, which is another thing that just reading this made me crack up. All these players I just read are all, either fringe all-stars or a Kyle Kuzma type. And Jock Landale's the most overrated. Anthony Davis getting a most overrated vote is interesting to me. What part of Anthony Davis's game is overrated? He's not really been an all-NBA player. He was top 75, so maybe it's that. Maybe it's a player that didn't get on top 75. And that part of it I could understand that being overrated, honestly. We'll probably go through that this summer and go back through, all right, should Anthony Davis be top 75 or who should be there? Jokic just was not there, right? Dwight Howard didn't make it. Mavs got 1 vote or 2 votes for most underrated player, and that's Naji Marshall. Shout out to Naji Marshall, getting a couple of votes there for being the most underrated player. I hope that was either his Mavs teammates or it could be some of his Pelicans teammates that really liked him. There's a lot of love there for sure. He talked about that when he first joined the Mavs. But shout out to Naji Marshall getting a couple votes there. Aside from your own coach, who was the best coach in the league? Jason Kidd got 1 vote for this. Rick Carlisle also got 1 vote. Jamal Mosley also got 1 vote. So all the hand wringing of, man, the Mavericks missed out by not getting Jamal Mosley. They should never have let Rick go. They all got 1 vote from players as the best coach. So who the heck knows? Mark Daigneault, number 1 on that one, 22%. Kenny Atkinson of the Cavs got 13%. Spoelstra got 13%. Mazzulla of the Celtics got 12%, and then so on. And then aside from your own coach, who is the worst coach in the league? I know many of you may say Jason Kidd. He did not get a single vote on this for worst coach in the league. Brian Keefe of the Wizards got a 4th of the vote. Budenholzer of the Suns. Doc Rivers of the Sixers. No, Doc Rivers of the Bucks now. Charles Lee of the Hornets. Interesting. A lot of good stuff in there. Go check it out at The Athletic. But you see where the Mavericks are showing up. They're not showing up in a lot of spots, to be honest. 1 vote for Anthony Davis for overrated. 2 votes for Naji Marshall for underrated. 1 vote for Kidd for best coach in the league. It's like the Mavericks are not really ranking high on a lot of people's lists right now. Didn't get any for like MVP, obviously, or which team will win the title, obviously, but all that kind of stuff. All right, we have lots of stuff all through the summer. Stick with us. We'll have lottery stuff. Isaac will have the show covered for you tomorrow. Go check it out, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.